Welcome back to Triple Threat Podcasts, and we have another live show. 2 in 1 week. What a big special we got going on. Some might say we are back. It's the summer season. That means we got time, all the time.
Yes.
So we're gonna be coming to you a lot more often today. We got a live show, NBA Draft Lottery coming up. Ishan, this is a first year in a while that both of our teams don't have their own pick in the top
Yep.
14.
I think in all of our years of doing the podcast, it's the first year. Period.
Well, because the Pelicans haven't made it since 2017, and in
Yep, the
2017 the
Hawks.
Hawks weren't in it, so
The Hawks were in 2019,
it's
2020.
probably 2015 the last time both of them were in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, 7 years.
It was close this year. We could have had two. Could have had two lottery picks.
The Pelicans do have one lottery pick, number 8 overall projected, but we'll see where that lands. 6% chance of going inside, or 6% chance at number 1, 25% at the top 4. So looking all right for the Pelicans fans out here. But who are the names you're going to be excited to see going up in the draft board? Because there's kind of a very small top tier of this draft class.
Yeah, I think it's been like this all season long. The top three have been Paolo Banchero from Duke, Jabari Smith from Auburn, and Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga. At different points in time, you had them as a number one overall guy. I think early on, a lot of people were on the Chet train, but as the season progressed, people were really liking Jabari. And then March Madness, Paolo went crazy, and the other two struggled. So he's kind of the number one guy right now. But I think of the three, I like Paolo's game the most. I really like his playmaking from the post, his ball handling ability, and I also really like his ability to score at least really effectively on two levels, the interior and the mid-range. We've seen some powerful finishes from him, some really tough mid-range shots. And I think that if he expands his range a little bit, then he's going to be a really, really, really tough offensive player to stop in the league. Jabari, I like from a shooting perspective, but outside of that, outside of perimeter shooting, outside of his perimeter game, he has a lot to work on the offensive and defensive end. I think Chet Holmgren, when it comes to blocking shots, there's no one in the draft better than Chet. And he was able to play well on and off the ball at Gonzaga, but I think he needs to refine his offensive game a little bit more, become stronger so he can operate in the post. But I think these are all three players with various strengths and weaknesses, but they can all address those and become really talented, well-rounded players.
Yeah, and there's one thing that when you talk about those three guys, one thing that all of them have in common is that they're bigs. The best guard in this draft class, Jaden Ivey, is going to be the interesting player that people are going to look out for because teams that need a guard, and obviously it's when you're in the top 4, you're not really picking based on fit or need. You're just picking BPA. But Jaden Ivey is an interesting player, kind of in the tier of his own in terms of guards or backcourt players in this draft class. So it's really interesting to see who slips or sneaks up. He's a name I'd look out for teams that are in the lower end of the lottery that jump up into the top 4 to that fourth pick. Looking at teams like the Pelicans. I mean, that's the dream right there. Teams
Ivy would
like
be such a nice fit there.
he'd be such a great fit there. But that's kind of who you're looking for as kind of that player to jump up for, and then the rest of the lottery is kind of an unknown. You have that top 4 that you kind of know is going to go 1 to 4 or in that range. So you're really looking at who jumps up into that range. That's kind of the area you want to get up into if you want to get one of those players, because 5 to 14. I mean, the number 14 player on big boards could be the number 4 player on some other one. So that kind of that volatility in that range is kind of how the lottery's always been. It's always that top crop of talent. And then a big jump off for the rest. Any other names that you're looking at for in this lottery before we get into the actual announcements
Yeah,
because
I
they
think
love to delay this.
first of all, you're absolutely right. It's kind of the year of the big here, but it's more the year of the unicorn big. These are all guys that are not your traditional, ground and pound type, back to the basket players. But I look at this wing talent and I'm really intrigued by it. So the Raptors last year, they had two choices. They take their point guard of the future, Jalen Suggs, who was an excellent prospect. A lot of guys really liked him, and he was slated to go four. Or you go ahead and you take a wing, Scotty Barnes, who's 6'9", really versatile on defense, has an extremely strong work ethic, and has a very well-rounded type offensive game where he can make plays for himself and others, and he can impact winning in a variety of ways. I bring this up because I see a lot of names towards the top between 4 and let's say 20 guys like Jaden Ivey, even Keegan Murray, AJ Griffin, Tari Eason, Ben Mathurin, Jeremy Sokan, Osama Asume Dieng. I see all these guys that are between around 6'4" and 6'9". They're wings. They can play. Some can play the two. A lot can play the three. Some can play the four as well. And these are guys that are very versatile. They can switch around. They can play off ball. They can impact the game in a variety of ways on both ends of the floor. And I think the Raptors, if you look at their team from top to bottom, guys like Barnes, Anunoby, Achua, these are all guys from the 6'6" to 6'8" range that are very versatile. They're very rotational, and it's kind of moving towards that positionless era. So I think a lot of these wings that we see are going to be flying up the draft boards just because there's a lot of value in taking kind of your well-rounded Swiss Army knife type wing.
Exactly, and there's some names that are a little bit further down the draft board that might be more familiar with the casual audience. Johnny Juzang, Kobe Cockburn, Drew Timmy. Explain to me why these guys that have been incredibly productive in college, influential, best player in the country kind of players, have been relegated to kind of a second round kind of prediction.
I think number one, you have age. Cockburn, Juzang, those are juniors. Timmy's also a junior. But also kind of play style. UCLA as a whole was a team that was pretty reliant on that mid-range game. And so they took a lot of mid-range shots, weren't necessarily the most efficient ones. And because of that, Juzang's play style was more kind of old school mid-range dominated and not really suited for the NBA. Also, he had some limitations on defense. Timmy was great on offense, especially kind of being a really good off-ball player and leading a lot of transition offense. But outside of that, his lack of athleticism and his age really limits his upside, despite his really good college production. And then Kofi Cockburn, I think, is very one-dimensional. He's 23 years old. You know what you're going to get out of him, but how much more can you get? What's his ceiling looking like? There's not really much to it. It's not really as much there as some other players. And 1.1 blocks per 36 minutes is not really great for a 7-footer that should be, dominating the post. And so I think those are some of the limitations. But my thing is a lot of these guys that dominate in college, even though they go pretty low, they're always able to find a spot in the NBA. So do not count them out completely yet. They'll either be really good G League players or kind of be those last guys on a roster that will give some of the other bench players a run for their money. And some of them can even go on to become good serviceable starters as well.
I would say look at last year's draft. Luka Garza is a perfect example. Someone who went late second round and found himself a good home on an NBA roster. Um, but I think those older players, I think the NBA has oftentimes shied away from the older prospect just because the idea of older prospect means less time or less value. But I'd argue the contrary. If you're a championship team, I'd say any team in the playoffs this season, you have a late first round pick, second round pick. I mean, you want to maximize that rookie scale contract. So getting 4 years of arguably better basketball less upside, but you're going to maximize that contract. It's going to be more beneficial for these teams competing now. I mean, look at guys
Yeah,
like Herb Jones, Jose Alvarado, older prospects that came in, and they're going to have an immediate impact on NBA basketball. So a little bit of a
yeah.
biased perspective there, but just if you look at these older prospects are coming in. I mean, look at the Hawks. I mean, Jalen Johnson and Sharif Cooper had minimal impact this season, with higher draft capital than those two players. They might be better players in the future, but if you're going to maximize that rookie scale contract, the Pelicans already got 2 great years out of their players, all defensive production from Herb Jones versus the Hawks got rotational minutes at best.
And the other guy that I really like here, he's almost 22, and Trevion Williams from Purdue. So he was a great guy next to Jaden Ivey. And what I love about his game is his passing ability. He's the best post playmaker in this draft, and that opened up so much for Purdue. They were a 3 seed, and at one point they were the #1 team in the country. And at some points he was as valuable as Jaden Ivey. So he shot about 55% from the field. Can't really shoot from much where else, but he can score. He can pass out of the playmate. He can pass out of the post. He can rebound as well and provide serviceable defense. So that's another guy that his draft slot right now is like 53rd, 55th, but he's another guy that I can see rising.
I don't know. We haven't really delved too deep into our draft analysis. One of the guys that I have an eye on right now is Keon Ellis from Alabama. I think he's got a lot of great intangibles that would make him a candidate for one of those teams looking for a win now kind of player. 6'6" at the shooting guard position. Really great intangibles there. He's a little undersized at 175, but what he's brought on the defensive end, 7 rebounds, 2.3 steals a game. He's a player that's had really positive impact at Alabama, and has throughout his 4 years there has really made the program a lot better since, and helped bring up guys like J.D. Davidson and guys like Herb Jones and Kyra Lewis. So it's really seen the growth of this basketball program, and I think he would be a really good contributor to any contending team. So I think that this is a prospect that I'm a little higher on. Do you have you watched his film yet, or do you have any ideas on him as a prospect? Or
To be honest with you, I've not, but Will said this. Look, this is very early on in the draft process for us, so we haven't been able to watch film or look at too much. This is just going off some of the games that I've seen, some things that I've read, and I think Will can attest to that as well. So as the draft comes closer and closer, we're definitely going to be looking at some mock drafts, some film sessions, similar to what we did last year. We had a lot of fun doing that, so we're excited to run it back again this year.
well, it looks like the lottery's finally getting close to starting, so we might switch over to that any moment. They've got some waffle going on. Damian Lillard's talking. Let's see what he's saying over
It can be
here.
handled. So, we felt like it was the right decision to, cut the season short and make sure I got healthy for us to have a better future moving forward.
We look forward to seeing you on the court and healthy at the start of next season. After a year, though, of significant change.
Yeah, it's nothing. We'll be back in a second with that because, as always, they're talking about nothing. So, let's talk a little bit more about this draft class. Some of the most intriguing guys in this draft class are going to come from Memphis, Josh M.A.A.d, and obviously Jalen Duren. Have you heard much about this Memphis draft class? It's a lot of unknowns with this. How Memphis has been a while, getting these top-end talents, but playing time has been unfortunate to say the least.
Yeah. I think Jalen Duren's the big one here. Also, Memphis, it's kind of why M.A.A.d Bates transferred out as well, or is going to transfer out. Duren is interesting to me. A lot of people are comparing him to guys like Robert Williams or even Dwight Howard, just for the size and athleticism. It's all there, but I wonder, in most of these lottery situations, it's going to be hard to develop him just because he's so raw. He has really good defensive instincts, but aside from that, on the offensive end, he's just kind of a lob catcher. So I wonder how his offensive game is going to refine, what he's actually going to do to make that next offensive step. Because outside of just the really traditional big man stuff, there's not too much that he offers for me.
Exactly. So, but one player that we're talking about before, I know you can talk about him for a while, and we'll probably have to talk for a while because the draft still hasn't started yet. Talk about Dyson Daniels a little bit, the G League shooting guard.
Yeah. So Dyson Daniels is a guard from Australia, actually, and he took advantage of the G League route instead of the NBL. And this is a guy that I've been seeing a lot on like G League highlights, just from his playmaking ability. He only has 4.4 assists, so it doesn't look like too much, but just he has a really good feel for the game. His ability to read the floor and make really smart, not always the flashiest, but sometimes flashy passes is just really, really impressive to me. I also noticed that he gets on both ends of the floor. He's not afraid to, play hard defense. He's not afraid to be a tough player. And I think that his combination of just that, point guard type on ball defense combined with his really, really good playmaking is going to make him a really valuable wing piece in the NBA. And I think that if he's able to, make his shooting somewhat serviceable, only 25% from three, I think that he'll be a really, really, really good player on a championship or contending team.
And one player I think I am quite high on is Tari Eason. A lot of SEC guys.
Yeah.
The SEC's been a lot stronger for conference recently than it has been in the past. Usually it's been just a football conference, but its basketball division has really improved dramatically. Looking at the rise programs like Arkansas, Alabama, LSU. Obviously, you got Kentucky getting back into what they were.
Yeah.
And Easton's kind of a player interesting. You're going to look at the base stat lines, and there's really no one in the country that really argue or can contend with him. 6'8", power forward, averaging 25 a game, 10 rebounds, 1.6 blocks, and most impressively, 3 steals a game.
That's per 36.
Well, yeah, but that's kind of how I look at players because, 17 points a game. I mean, you're comparing apples and oranges, so.
It's 2 steals and a block, regardless. That's extremely impressive. The fact that at 6'8", 216, he's an explosive athlete. He can get up the floor. You've probably seen some of those transition dunks. They're extremely, extremely impressive. He can grab boards. He's a really good defender as well. From what I've seen, he shows a lot of effort. He's really gritty, and he can score, and he can finish really well on the interior.
Hold on. We're starting finally.
Oh, let's go.
Oh. Cleveland, Charlotte, the Thunder.
Oklahoma City receives this pick.
They take so long to get it started, but when it goes, it goes.
The 11th pick goes to the New York
The Knicks. Oh, they're mad. They're mad.
They're mad.
Pick number 10 will be made by
Did she say that right
the
there?
Washington Wizards.
So no surprises yet.
All right, Pelicans got a pick. We're in. Because there was a chance that wasn't going to go to us, so it was in top 10.
The San Antonio Spurs.
All right, 8. This is us. So if this is not the Pelicans, we're in the top 4.
The New Orleans Pelicans.
That's fine.
That's all good. That's all good.
No one's jumped yet. That's kind of
The
interesting.
7th pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
The Portland Trailblazers.
Wow, that means Sacramento has moved
Wait, I'm
up
like
to the top
a little bit
4.
behind you. You're at 6.
Pick
Almost.
number 6 goes to
Okay.
the
I just got
Indiana
7.
Only one envelope remaining before we know all of the teams in the top 4.
Oh, Sacramento gets the top 4. They'll probably waste it anyways.
5th pick will be made
But,
by
I feel bad for whoever gets the.
the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, they're mad. Oh.
That means that we have our 4. Sacramento, Oklahoma City, the Magic, and the Rockets. Coming up, the drama, it continues, and we find out the
All
order of
right.
the top 4 picks in the
We got our
2022
top 4.
NBA draft. That's next.
Ooh,
Don't go
Detroit. That's really unfortunate. I wanted them to get. I wanted them to be top 3.
Yeah, so we got our top four. Kings, Thunder, Magic, Rockets. Now these are like the bottom feeders of the NBA right
Yeah.
now. So, um, everyone that's in the top four. I'm sorry. Um, Paulo, please request a trade
Just don't
immediately.
go to Sacramento or Orlando.
Oh, Paulo's going to Sacramento and he's becoming uh, Bagley
Bagley too.
2.0.
No. Well, he's a lot better prospect. He's a much better prospect than
Oh
Marvin
no,
Bagley.
yeah, but it's Sacramento, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. That
That
just makes me
that
sad.
is that is where talent goes to die. So,
Yeah.
idealistically, as an NBA fan, I was really hoping for a team, like the Trailblazers, like the Pacers, like the Pelicans.
I would have liked to
Um,
see the Pacers.
I mean, pretty much any other team get into the top four. Um,
Hmm.
the only team there that you can look at and be like, okay, I see where they're going. They have a direction. They have a future. I would say is the Thunder.
Yeah.
The Thunder seem like they have a clear direction what they're trying to go. They already have an established young star. Um, Not like any of the other teams have. I mean, Detroit would have had an established young star that I would have thought would have been more promising than any of those other teams of trying to
But
reach into
nothing
the
like
top
us
four.
today.
No, no.
Nothing today.
So
Yeah.
it's a shame for Detroit because it was a perfect scenario for them. Top three players
Yeah.
are all bigs. They were a team looking for a four. That'd be a great spot of
Definitely a
need for
dude to
them.
replace Jeremy Grant too.
Exactly. So they were looking for the bigs. They were looking at those top three players. And they're not going to be available. And Jaden Ivey could be available at five. I mean, yeah, could
He'll
be
probably
available at
go for
five, but he
it.
probably will go four. So you're going to be looking at AJ Griffin. You're going to be looking at Keegan Murray. Um, who else? You could
Yeah,
Tyre
outside of like
Eason.
um, once Ivy gets selected, there's gonna be definitely a drop. The drop after Ivy, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I feel like that's a pretty disappointing result for them. You
Mhm.
don't talk about the Magic because they have the pieces, but they don't have a star. They could get that star in this draft class. I don't see it personally, and with their construction of their roster, this is not a great draft for them to be in the top four.
Yeah. Looking at the roster, I'm gonna pull their depth chart. They have some really good guard play. You have Cole Anthony. You have what's his name? Jalen Suggs.
You got
You have
Markel,
RJ Hampton. And so that's
whatever Markel
good.
is.
Yeah. Oh, Markel, my bad. You have Franz Wagner, Chumo Okiki, Wendell Carter Jr. has had like a career resurgence,
John
and
Isaac.
then you have some other guys like Mo Bamba. You have Terrence Ross still there, Gary Harris.
John Isaac's
So
still
it's
there, man. That guy,
John Isaacs. Oh my, he's always injured. Literally right now, I see the O next to his name on ESPN for out. But I
he'll
would say
play next year.
of anyone in the top four, I actually do like Ivy there. That would mean that you have to put either Anthony or Suggs on the bench. Probably Suggs for now. Um, Chet could be interesting, but they also took a skinny shot blocker with a perimeter game a few years ago, Mo Bamba. That didn't really work out. I think with Jonathan Isaac's future kind of uncertain, you could be looking at a power forward. But I think here, as surprising as it is, I really like Chumo Kiki a lot, and I think I'd want Ivy. I think I'd actually want Ivy. I would not be sad if I was a Magic fan going number 4.
To announce the order
All
of the top
right,
four picks
we're
is
about to be
NBA
back.
Deputy Commissioner Mark Taylor.
All right,
Thanks again, Malika.
here we are.
The fourth pick in the 2022 NBA Draft presented by State Farm goes to the Sacramento Kings.
Kings.
The third pick goes to
Sacktown.
That's
I think
the
I'll
worst
do it.
nickname of all time.
Or the Bucks Cream
the second
City.
pick will be made by
Oh,
the
horrendous.
Oklahoma City Thunder. And that
The
means
Magic
that
get the
first
top pick.
in the 2022 NBA Draft goes to the
Wait,
Orlando
how do you know that?
Magic.
The Orlando Magic have been awarded the first pick in the 2022 draft. They will pick number 1 for the fourth
Okay,
time.
so OKC goes.
All right, we have our order. let's talk about the top four because that's kind of the interesting argument right now. So the Magic getting the first pick. Um,
Oh my god, all these players look so pissed off right now.
oh, they were praying for like a Trailblazers, Pacers, Pelicans to. That was like the realistic teams that could have gotten in there. Um,
Yeah,
Even Detroit. That is a low standard to set when Detroit is a place you're looking at
yeah. Or just
favorably.
someone.
So if
But
Sacramento's smart and they really want to capitalize on their draft position and the value at that spot, they're gonna look at uh, Paulo or Jabari or Chet, and if not, they should trade out. And I think trading out might be a viable decision for them because
I think so
if you have
too.
a number one overall player, you need to do whatever you can to surround them. You need to make them the focal point of the team. And if you don't do that, you're going to be left with the Markel Fultz. And I think Orlando knows all about how that's going to happen. I mean, they can talk to him about that. Um, they need to get the full support of the player. And this team is just too loaded with young players. I think
Hmm.
at some point they need to give up on some of these players. They became once they lost their identity after they traded players like Vucevic and um, Oladipo and I'm trying to other think. Magic are pretty forgettable. Um, Gordon.
Oh yeah, they had that like 7 seed in the playoffs era.
Yeah, so they tried to rebuild by taking the league's trash and trying to make it their own treasure, and I think they did a good job trying to find pieces, making themselves have more of an identity. But at this point, you have so much young talent on this team that's just they're not gonna be anything special, but they're fine. They're adequate NBA players. Um,
Yeah.
but at this point, you need to start consolidating some talent, and I could see them looking at the trade block. Look at guys like,
Or the
well,
crazy.
I would have said this if they signed and trade for Bradley Beal, ship away some of their young talent to Washington, get a really experienced guard, pair him with Apollo, with Jabari, and
That might be trying to rush the rebuild.
well, I
But
mean,
I feel like you're right. Like you can't just acquire people. Like it's not 2K where you just acquire people. They naturally progress according to the 2K algorithm, and everything's all happy.
you also got to think about it. When you have so many mouths to feed, I mean, it's going to hinder the development of so many players. If they
Exactly. Yeah.
draft Paulo Banchero or Jabari Smith, I mean, look at the point in the roster where Chumo Kiki's going to fall to. He's going to be behind John Isaac because John Isaac's going to come back. He's going to be behind the rookie, so he'll be likely a third or fourth string four. So he's going to get like 2 minutes a game unless he bumps out to the three, which he can. Um, it's going to be. I just think that they're going to have an overcrowded roster, and if they really care about the development and the maximization of their talent that they have, is they need to consolidate some of those resources in order to one focus on their rookie and ensure his development, and also uh, maximize the value of their players because the less minutes you play, your other guys like a Cole Anthony or a Chumo Kiki, the less their trade value is going to be. So at this point, I think they got to consolidate and try and look for acquiring some bigger names, even if it is marginally better talent. They just got to look
Yeah.
at getting some better players. I mean, even looking at a guy like Julius Randle, I know it wouldn't be great considering he's a four, but a guy of that quality who's been an all-star, not
Yeah.
the highest value at this point, but um,
I think
still
I think Mo has to go.
he has to go. Has to. I don't even know what you
I
get
think
at this point for him.
also might be a good idea to move on from RJ Hampton. Just open up some guard minutes for Anthony and Suggs. I think you could also move on from even Okiki. I think also the other thing is money. Like you can't pay everyone, so you need to get rid of some of these guys before they start asking for more money, and you can't afford some of your quality players. So there's also that as well. So I think Orlando. It's one of the harder situations to assess because you don't know what they're going to do with their other players. But I think that with their number one pick,
I think it's going to be Chad.
I also think it's going to be Chet.
Because
They're
unless
not
they're
going to.
willing to part ways with John Isaac, who they have a pretty large contract on at this point, he's a pretty big unknown considering his health status. You're not going to get the best value from him at this point, and I think the Magic are going to tie it to him. And if you want to pick a Jabari or a Paulo, I mean, Paulo played the five at Duke, and he played it really well at times. I think he is
Yeah.
I think he's the perfect modern player, or the
I
perfect
think I
modern
think
big.
Paulo is better if you move on from Isaac, and I think they should move on from.
I think that's the right move. But I think they're going to pick Chet, and I think that's going to be the worst possible situation for Chet and the Magic.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Chet is going to be a Mobamba there. I'm
Yeah.
personally not the biggest fan of Chet. I mean, 7 foot 195. There was nothing really dominant about him at Gonzaga, in my opinion. I mean, just watching him against Arkansas was pretty lackluster, and I think that his performances. Whenever I watched him, I mean, I only watched him in those big games, like the Duke game beginning of the season and the Final Four and the March Madness. So, just I kind of have a sour taste in my mouth about Chet Holmgren. I haven't delved into the film at this point, but I feel like the Magic are gonna be forgettable. I don't think this is gonna really help their situation at all.
Yeah.
Want to move
I
up to pick
think.
number two?
Yeah. Let's move on. I was gonna say.
Um,
Moving on to pick number 2. Yeah. Go ahead.
who was it? I'm forgetting. Was it the Thunder?
It's the Thunder. Yes. Okay. See, I just pulled that up too.
Perfect. This could not have gone better for them. This is the one
Yeah.
team in the four I'm actually looking forward to seeing.
I think here. I think here you go with who you either go with Paulo or Chet, whoever's available.
I was gonna say Jabari or Paulo, whoever's available.
I think just based on, I think yeah, you could go with any one of them, whichever, because I went with Chet because I like
They already
him
have their
more.
own Chet and Poku. Poku is Chet at this point. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. I mean, he's a 20-year-old
But
freshman. He's not like that young either.
he's not that young, but what he brings on the defensive end already and his
Dude,
upside on the offensive end
him against Steven
is a
Adams would be
lot
the
more than
worst matchup
whatever
of all
Poku will
time.
bring. And I also think that if you look at the roster, Shea and Giddy will be the backcourt. So any thought of Ivy is out of the picture.
Hmm.
The small forward position is kind of available. You could look at I see Dort there for now and definitely for the foreseeable future. But if they want to move on to someone with a little bit higher upside, they could. But when I look at that front court, Darius Baisley and Isaiah Roby, I'm a big fan of Darius Baisley, so that's why I went with Chet here. Just if Orlando ends up going with Paolo at 1, but if they go Chet at 1, which they could very well do, then Paolo would be a really really amazing fit here as well. And I think Jabari could really benefit from Shea's playmaking ability and Giddy's playmaking ability as well.
Yeah, I can see that opinion. Personally, I think at this point, um, in the mindset, especially what the Thunder are doing in terms of their more long-term orientation, they're going to be looking at BPA. And I would assume they would presumably think Chet is BPA, considering the upside of a 7 foot unicorn. But I mean, I'm not the biggest Chet fan. I really like Paulo. I like Jabari. I think they take whoever of those who is available because Paulo is a polished and I think ready NBA big. He can play the 4 and the
Yeah,
5, and we've seen throughout these playoffs the advantages of going small and advantages of going big. Look in series like Suns Pelicans, where it was a matchup of sometimes Jay Crowder and Aiton versus Valanciunas and Hayes versus they would take all of those guys off and it would be a lineup of who would the Suns have? It would be like just JaVale anchoring it with
yeah,
against Larry Nance as the primary big for the Pelicans, and those big shifts in size really benefit a guy like Paulo, who can easily slide to the 5 and be your small ball 5, or be your big ball 4. He's polished inside. He's risen to the biggest moments, and he has a polished looking NBA 3. He scores when he wants to. He's a certified bucket. His hustle at the defensive end is quite honestly scary.
I think it's also just being able to get to places on the court. That's what you see a lot with Trae Young, and that's what you see with Luka as well. Being able to get to where you want on the court is really, really crucial to be an offensive player. And I saw that at Duke a lot, where Paulo was able to get to his spots. He was able to get to where he was strongest at, and really, really just make a tremendous impact offensively. So, looking at pick number 3, this is where it kind of gets interesting. I think it will be the last one of the bigs. Looking at Houston, especially considering that they already have Jalen Green, and they're definitely going to give that another run for next year. Because the backcourt, Kevin Porter, Jalen Green, solid. Small forward, you have Eric Gordon, and then the front court you have some kind of combination of like Jayshawn Tate, Christian Wood, Alperen Sengun. I think here
And
Chet could
still got
be
Usman Garuba.
Usman Garuba as well. I think here, considering that Tate, Wood, and Sengun could play the 4, and I think Wood's future there is kind of coming to an end. I think this could be a really good place for Chet. He'll definitely get minutes here. He'll be able to play off some solid playmakers. Jalen Green and Eric Gordon will kind of ease off the scoring for him. Josh Christopher too. And he'll be able to kind of grow offensively and ease into a system where you have guys like KPJ, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Eric Gordon, Josh Christopher.
Even Dacian Nix. I mean, I'm a big Dacian Nix.
Dacian
He
Nix,
didn't really
too.
show it last year, but I still have faith.
Yeah, and they have Dennis Schroeder as well. So they have a bunch of guys that can make plays already. And Chet Holmgren can kind of step in, at least be kind of more traditional, go out space the floor every now and then, but also come back in. He'll be able to play off these guys really well and then begin to develop and create for himself as he gets stronger and as he bulks up. I also think Jabari Smith would be great here. I don't think Paolo's going past 2.
He can't.
So it's going to be Smith or Holmgren. I think Holmgren is probably a bit of a better fit here, in my opinion. And I think right now the 1, 2, 3 for me is Banchero, Smith, Holmgren.
I mean, I can see that. I mean, you've got Sengun and Wood is kind of your established, your front court at this point in time. Sengun's a really small 5, and Wood is more of a 4, but can play the 5.
Yeah, I think he's more effective as a 4.
I think he is as well. I think that would make a lot of sense, freeing him up with a guy like with Chet Holmgren. I think that could be a very interesting fit. I think Jabari makes more sense in terms of the fit of this team because if you're looking at this roster construction, I don't think you can really factor in Christian Wood because this team's developing, and Christian Wood is one of the most valuable players in this league considering his contract. He is on an extremely team-friendly deal, and he would be an immediate contributor to any team. So I think you look.
There are a lot of teams that would really benefit from him and that would love to have him.
He is a perfect contending player with that contract that he has right now. I mean, you look at pretty much any team left in the playoffs right now. The Warriors could be interesting. Mavericks would love a Christian Wood.
Yeah.
That'd be the perfect scenario for Christian Wood. Boston, Miami, all those teams could use a Christian Wood. So I wouldn't really factor him in terms of the fit that you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking at and fit in terms of your roster construction. I think if you look at fit in terms of how they play with a guy like Jalen Green, and fit with Jalen Green, I think that's going to be Jabari Smith, the more athletic player, because this is going to be a team based on pace. They're a team based on athleticism, and if you're going to look at, you got Green and you got Porter. Those are like athletic, bouncy guards. You want somebody that can run with them, and that's going to be Jabari Smith. He's probably the best fit, in my opinion, in terms of meshing with their young talent. So that would be my pick here. If I were to mock a little 1, 2, 3, I think it'd be Chet, Paolo, Jabari. If I were the GMs of these teams, that's probably how I would order it. Or that's how I'm kind of predicting it would go. Obviously, I think Paolo is the best player in this draft class. So that's probably how it's going to shake out. So I think OKC and Houston are over the moon. They jumped in. They're going to get one of these great bigs, and it's going to be perfect for those rebuilds. So I might have said I was a little disappointed. I think I'll just disappointed with the Magic at this point. 2 and 3
Yeah.
are going to be having a pretty solid time. Maybe wait a year or two, but I think those teams definitely have futures with Jalen Green showing a lot of promise at the end of last season, and obviously SGA is already an all-star. One of
Yeah.
my favorite players in the league. I think he's a top
Me
5
too.
guard. I love
I
SGA.
also think that Sacramento, man, looking at this team, what they could have if they won top three, they really could have done something great. I think they'll probably draft Ivy,
I think that's the
but
best fit for them if you're looking at it.
I think it's a really good fit for them. But looking at their roster, your backcourt of Fox and Mitchell, Harrison Barnes, in the small forward, don't love it. Demonis Sabonis is your 5, and I would really love to see either a guy like Jabari Smith or Paolo Banchero come in at that 4. I think Smith would be really nice to kind of open up the floor for Sabonis and for Fox's playmaking. But I really would have loved to see Jabari in Sacramento, but he'd
I don't know.
also probably.
I mean, they sold their whole franchise to get in Sabonis, so I feel like it'd be kind of productive to try and bring in one of these big 4. I think the landing spot at 4 is pretty ideal for them actually.
Because you're gonna have Sabonis at the 5.
He's
You'd have Sabonis play center. Because you don't have anybody. There's nobody else on that team
Rashawn
that can
Holmes.
play. Who?
Rashawn Holmes. He's a solid center.
Isn't he like? Didn't something happen to him where like his future is very very uncertain?
Very well could be. I am not avid Kings fan.
Oh, he was out for the whole season because he had some domestic violence stuff, and I think it's kind of a bad taste. So it'd be under the assumption that they move on from Holmes.
No.
They move on from Holmes. He slots a bonus at the 5, and him kicking it out to someone like Jabari Smith at 4. At the 4, to me, would be very good.
It would have made more sense if they were to bring in a 5 to complement Sabonis. Complimenting Sabonis at the 5 is not the easiest task because you look at what the fit was in Indianapolis with guys like Miles Turner. I would maybe look at branching out under the wings of this pick with maybe an A.J. Griffin. Maybe a little bit too early for him, or
That's what. Yeah, they could look into trading down.
or they could also look at Jeremy Sochan of Baylor.
Yeah, so that would definitely be trading down.
Or no, I think A.J. Griffin would. I think it'd be a reach, but in terms of the value of what I've been seeing mocked so far, I don't think A.J. Griffin would be the furthest
Because
reach at
I
this
know for
point.
a fact Detroit would love to move up into the top 4 if they had a chance, even just trading up 1 or 2 picks.
Yeah, so I this is definitely a trade back spot in my opinion.
Yeah,
I could see them going back, trying to pick up a guy like Mark Williams or Jalen Duren, the 2 top centers in this class.
Yeah.
Or no, excluding Chet obviously, because
yeah.
Chet's kind of like
2 and 3.
2 and 3. So, or even a guy like Walker Kessler. I think Walker Kessler could be an interesting fit. I mean, it's kind of similar to what you had in Miles Turner. But Walker Kessler is someone who's going to have a good NBA career because astounding shot blocker and is surprisingly mobile for his size. He's going to be a guy that's going to prove himself to be a valuable NBA piece. You're going to look at I saw a perfect mold for him and someone saying why he's going to be a great NBA player, but I forgot who the comparison was. Brooke Lopez, I think.
Yeah, possibly. Definitely with a shot blocking ability there.
I mean,
Another guy
4.6 a game is ridiculous. 6.1 per 36.
Another guy that's been kind of sliding a little bit, but could be an interesting European talent is Nikola Jovic. Not Jokic, Jovic. From,
From
also
Serbia.
Serbian. He might be from the same club as Jokic. But 6'10", grew up playing guard. You see a lot. It's a pretty big European trend. That's why they're killing it. And I think he has a very well-rounded skill set, really solid playmaker. And I think that if he kind of develops his shot, he kind of gives me some vibes of a better like Denny Avdia. So
Hmm.
another guy that we should definitely look into as well.
So you want to get into the biggest winners and losers of this NBA draft lottery announcement? So let's go through the
Yeah.
final order that we have. So the final order that we have is going to be Cleveland, Charlotte, OKC, New York, Washington, San Antonio, New Orleans, Portland, Indianapolis, or Indiana, Detroit, Sacramento, Houston, Oklahoma, Orlando. So let's talk about winners first. Or about positives here towards our podcast. Big winner
Yep.
would be
Obviously Orlando, but aside from that, I think that the Thunder they have pick number 2. They'll get one of the big 3, and pick number 12, where they can get some of those wings that we were talking about earlier on in the show. I think that's something really beneficial for them. I also think the Cavs, looking at another kind of wing piece to complement Okoro, or potentially going the shooting guard route to look at a Sexton replacement. At 14, there's some solid talent there as well. I also think that the Pelicans taking the Lakers pick is another really, really big win for them, as they're kind of looking to compete with or without Zion. And I also think the Pacers at 6, they have a decent roster and a lot of really good pieces. I think whoever they pick at 6 can really help bring the team together as well.
I'm going to start with my winners. You got to look at obviously OKC. Look at the Kings. They're the biggest mover in terms of this draft class. They're going up from 7-3 or 7-4 of 3-spot jump. They have to be excited. And then there wasn't really other big winners in this draft. I would say probably the biggest winner would probably be Jabari Smith. I would say because he's probably going to go to a scenario that's more preferable to his growth as a player. I think he's definitely one of the winners in this draft class, or winners of this draft lottery. Let's go into losers because this day was full of losers. I'll start with number 1, Chad Holmgren, biggest loser of this draft. He's going to Orlando, most things considered, unless they move off John Isaac. That's going to be an unfortunate situation for him to flourish in. So I think that's going to be quite unfortunate for him. Another loser I'm going to say is going to be the Kings GM because he is going to. I think it's going to be a difficult situation for him because he's going to be balancing talent versus fit in a team that's trying to both win now and rebuild, or a team that's trying to win that should rebuild. So he's in an interesting situation of how he's going to balance fit in terms of the spot. The top 3 bigs are going to be off the board. Either take best player available in Jaden Ivey or reach on a prospect. If they stayed at 7, it would have been a lot easier of a pick for them, but now they're in the top 4. They're going to have a lot more pressure on them. This pick is going to be a lot more heavily scrutinized in the future. So if he doesn't make the right pick at this selection, I think his job is definitely on the line. You can tell how much Kings knowledge I have. I don't know who the Kings GM is. But definitely, I think the hot seat is on. They might have lucked out in getting a top pick, but his job's on the line now, and this pick is no longer you can't pass off the 4th pick. You have to hit on this one. And with this roster, it's going to be interesting because if one of the big 3 fall, great. If not, you're going to pick Jaden Ivey, another guard. You just traded your best guard or your best talent, and Tyrese Halliburton to try and win now. So bringing in another guard to hurt Davion Mitchell's minutes, who the guy you're trying to help bring forward is going to be detrimental. So do you go scheme fit at trying to bring in a 3 or 5, taking a reach on them? Do you trade back? Do you sit pat and just take Ivy? And
you could move on from Mitchell while his value is still kind of high. Just because an undersized 2 guard without really the offensive game, you slot Ivy in there, it's a much better fit, and you put Mitchell in a better situation. I feel like it's more mutual.
That is
Michael,
an ideal situation.
Michael, get off. Michael, get off.
And that's another situation that the GM has to manage is how they manage the situation in the backcourt. So I feel bad. I feel bad for him. You got any losers, Ishan?
Also, the Lakers, man. What they could have done with this pick, could have drafted somebody so beneficial, gives them a drop of youth that they desperately need. And of course, that goes to the Pelicans.
They have no future. They have no picks, and they have a terrible contract in Westbrook. They've got one more year of
They got a
LeBron.
title out of it. They got a title. They got a title out of it.
I didn't say the trade was bad. I said they were in a bad spot.
Yeah.
They got Anthony
they're in a
Davis,
really
who's
good
going to have he has a 1-1. LeBron's got one more year. Westbrook's got another year. So you look 2023, 2024, 2025, those picks would be looking very nice for the Pelicans. Not the Lakers, the Pelicans. So they have no future. So they can't really add any talent. They have to trade Westbrook, which would presume trading a first-round pick to get rid of that contract, because he'd have to be a fool not to opt into that. Like, literally, he'd have to be brain dead to not opt into that. Because no other team's paying him 40-something million a year.
No,
He'd be lucky to get 4.
Yeah, exactly. At this rate, he's gonna come off, go like 4 for 37 in like 2 minutes somehow.
So they don't really have anything to build off of. They really have to rely off free agency, bringing in talent once their contracts of those big 3 guys expire. Or else they could be looking at another post-Kobe era. I'm praying for as a Pelicans fan. Any other losers?
That's someone that hates the Lakers. It's really great to see. The Knicks
Pistons.
as well.
Gotta be the Pistons.
Oh yeah, Detroit. Yeah, Detroit. What they could have done with one of the big 3 would have been really special. And also considering that they're moving on from Jeremy Grant, there is a clear hole at the 4 or 5 spot. And now that I think they're gonna look to trade up if they can.
Yeah, they were jockeying themselves in order to pick one of those top 3. They were assuming that they were going to land at their 3 spot or even jump up higher, and they were banking on getting the top 3 guys. And when that was crushed tonight, they are going to be put in a scramble. So I definitely think it's probably worth using some assets to jump into that top 3. It shouldn't be too expensive.
Use Jeremy Grant.
Easily, you could just say Grant and the pick, move up 2 spots. I think wouldn't be. I don't think anyone would be opposed. They could probably jump up to 1 if they wanted to.
Ooh, that's bold. It's very bold.
I mean, they could. I mean, Orlando, I said they should trade out. I don't think Detroit's the perfect trading partner to trade out, but I do see the Magic being.
They could do it for sure. Yeah, just more evidence as why you can't have shit in Detroit.
Anything else you want to wrap up before we close this podcast out?
That's really it. We kind of alluded to this, but school is out for both of us. We're going to have a lot more time over the summer, kind of return back to last year. We have 2 very exciting conference finals matchups with game 1, I guess at this time, already started between the Heat and the Celtics. So I'm super excited to watch that. And we'll definitely talk about predictions, the finals, some other content. I'm a Liverpool fan, so we're going to check out the Champions League final as well.
We're going to ignore
We're
today.
going to get... Oh, what was it, 2-1?
Yeah.
Damn, that's tough. Southampton A beat Southampton. But we're definitely going to be able to get a lot of content, not just sports content, but some music content as well. And yeah, that's it. Free YSL. And Michael Ty, we love you.
Oh, I just found out. D's is actually declaring for the draft this year, according to Michael.
Oh, really?
D's is declaring. Do you think D's could go number 1?
I think it's gonna be tough, but he's a very hard player to evaluate.
Very long. Kind of like Chet.
Yeah.
So it could be pretty similar trying to analyze the 2 players going into. I think for the Magic, I mean, 2 very similar profiles, tall, very undersized, underweight, I should say, very misutilized, exactly. But a unicorn to say the least.
A unicorn nonetheless. So definitely, D's will be interesting, and yeah, thank you, John Doe, for logging on and reminding us about D's because we didn't even get to touch on him yet.
That just shows you how poor our draft research has been so far. We'll give you a whole film episode on D's coming up.
Yeah. We're not ready for college. Goddamn, bro. Our humor's still stuck in middle school.
Oh, we got one more comment. I'll let you answer this one. This is close to home for you, especially from the comment.
Mavs trade Luca for Trey and John D. Brown Jr. What do y'all think? Man, I look with the way Luca is playing right now. I would love to see. I'd love to see Luca in Atlanta, but I'm loyal to my boy Trey, and I think with the way the team is built, it's built around his strengths and his weaknesses as well. So I think I'll have to pass on that. And Chanu D. Brown Jr. I think he's really, really valuable, too valuable to the team. So I'd hate to see him go.
And that's another reason why you need to do more of these live content, because the reactions can be priceless. Because I imagine that at draft night 2018 or 2019 or 2018 would have been wonderful to see our reactions to that, because both you and I.
If we saw me on draft night 2018, we'd be banned. We'd be perma banned.
Or me lottery night 2020.
Oh,
Was it 2019? Oh my god.
Or 2019 was Zion, yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Dude, I'm getting my years mixed up, man. We're old heads now.
I flipped the chair when we traded Luca away. I just got up and threw it, just flipped my chair. I was so mad.
Dude, we were both really high on Luca, but Trae Young, a lot better than I thought he would be. I was very low on Trae Young, as you know.
Me too. I had Sexton above him. I can't lie.
Ooh, I think I did too. What a horrific take that was.
Yeah.
So before we say anything else that's going to get us our status of somewhat reputable analysts taken away, let's end the stream for tonight. Catch us later. We're going to be doing some mock draft content, and stay tuned for our Kanye Kendrick brackets. Kanye's been recorded, Elite 8 on the way. Kendrick is limbo state right now, but we gotta.
It's in the works.
Well, we gotta have some more time for Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers to kind of resonate more.
We need to let it sink in.
Yeah, because
when Fantano drops a review, we'll
it happened.
drop the bracket.
He dropped the review.
Oh, he did.
He did
already.
So while Ishan goes to watch that, we'll see you all next time.
See ya.